let's talk about XCOM 2. So it's been over 3 years since Firaxis relaunched XCOM, so it's probably about time we got a sequel. Mike, you reviewed XCOM 2 for GameSpot. You gave it a 9 out of 10. So I guess that answers the first question. This is better than Terror from the Deep, and in terms of a sequel. What is it about XCOM 2 that it makes it so good? It seems like it's reinvented quite a lot of what the first game did.
Yeah, it's good as a sequel. It's not just this big expansion like Enemy Within is. It's very much its own game. You know what you're getting into if you played Enemy Unknown, Enemy Within, but it does revamp some of the core mechanics that made Enemy Unknown, kind of held it back from being great. It's also just, there are so many different layers to it. I think according to Steam, I've played about 66 hours at this point, but that's not counting another account I had for the review. And today I'm finding out new things. I'm going over to talk to Chris Waters and like people playing it, and I'm saying, like, did you do this yet? And it's things I didn't even see during the review process, but they revamped so much of how the formula works, all for the better. And it's for people that have played Enemy Unknown, Enemy Within, and for people new to it, people were asking, can I jump in it too? Like, yeah, absolutely, go for it.
So we've talked about this a little bit, but just again, a brief sort of synopsis of what exactly is changed in terms of your tactical influence on the map. Like, the roles have been flipped, right? You're the one who's kind of like the aggressor this time.
Yeah, it picks up, in terms of the narrative and the gameplay, it picks up as if it's 20 years after Enemy Unknown and the aliens won when you were trying to defend Earth.
I love it so much.
Yeah, so now you're like a guerrilla force, and it's really... It kind of ties into the gameplay really well. Like, from the strategy, the overarching world map layer, you're like this mobile base called the Avenger, and you're doing the same thing, clearing out the lower levels like you were, and building new facilities.
But it's literally like a floating spaceship.
It's like the Avengers helibase.
Right.
Yeah, and you're moving that around the map, and instead of kind of setting up satellite uplinks to defend Earth, you're connecting with other rebel cells across the world, because you're part of the resistance fighting against the Advent, this alien regime. And but on from a tactical standpoint, now vast majority of missions you drop in under concealment. So there's this fog, and as long as you don't cross like a vision cone or these vision tiles from enemies, you won't alert them, and you can kind of set up these ambushes and take your time.
It's so cool.
And that lets you set up these ambushes where you can kill a group of enemies right away, and then you're out of concealment. But also, it kind of negates that whole thing in Enemy Unknown. A lot of people got tired of the game after a while, because at the beginning of each mission you're doing Overwatch,
walking,
leapfrogging.
just every single level it was the same thing, right?
So now you can dash without like worrying that they're just going to spring on
Yes.
you. Well, you not entirely, but you don't worry about them kind of doing that as much now. It's still makes you cautious in a really good way, but now it's more thoughtful about it.
So that's an interesting new tactical element. I guess the first question that I want to ask, which a lot of people in the chat are asking as well, and it also echoes a lot of what the conversations have happened within the office about this game, is XCOM 2 harder?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say.
Oh, have you played as well?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Perfect.
I totally agree. I feel like, I don't know, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but when you're playing, do you feel like your fighters are more prone to like panic or like freak out?
I definitely thought that at least when they were rookies.
Yeah.
That was happening a lot more.
It happens way more often, especially in the beginning. And I feel like that sort of made my first couple hours a lot harder, because everyone was just freaking out all the time. And it was like...
It's like, don't sign up to a militia group fighting aliens if you can't cut it.
Yeah.
He's like the character from Saving Private Ryan, who doesn't do anything until the rest of the reinforcements have come.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's also kind of mirrors how you feel. Like if you're losing one guy and then there's a poison grenade covering 3 other ones, you're starting to panic, and then all of a sudden one of your rookies panics. You're like, all right, well, I can't really blame him entirely, but it's awesome when you get people to like lieutenant and captain, and like they're impervious to almost everything. Like aliens, the sectoids will try to mind control them. Like, no, fuck off. I'm fine.
So have either of you restarted your campaigns? Well, I'm guessing you have, Mike. Alexa, have you had to restart your campampagnes at all? Are you sort of like
not yet
taking away at it? Okay.
Chipping away at it.
I feel like I feel like that's what happened to Aaron once he like started playing a little bit more, is that he ended up having to restart a couple of times. Did you have that experience as well?
Yeah, I for the entire review process, I played on Iron Man. I just enjoy the game that much more with it. Which people who don't know, it progressively saves after every single thing you do, and the only way to get out is to save and exit. So you cannot reload a previous save. You have to deal with your consequences. And that's not me like humble bragging at all. I just enjoy the game much more. I've failed quite a few times over I've completed 2 campaigns. One was on a veteran. They were both on veteran, which is the default difficulty. Yeah, that's another thing.
They bumped all the difficulties up like 1 level.
Yeah,
right.
It says, the description next to veteran says, if you're an experienced XCOM player, play this. I would recommend, even if you played a lot of the first two, or the first one, the expansion, start on Rookie.
Yeah.
There are a lot of new layers to get used to. The tutorial does a good job explaining. There's so many things about ambushes and the strategy layer and what text to research that you don't learn until about like 20 hours in or so.
Is there a lot of the base building-y, like, management stuff? Is that as much? Because like that was the big thing they stripped out of. I feel like the big difference between Enemy Unknown or UFO Defense, I guess it was over here, right?
Enemy.
What was the original? The 19,
UFO Defense.
Yeah, UFO Defense. Yeah. Enemy Unknown as was in Europe. The main difference between that one and the reboot was that a lot of the base building stuff had been stripped out. Like that got pretty nitty gritty. Has that been layered back in again, or is it still kind of similar to XCOM 3 about years back?
It's still very much like Enemy Unknown. It's there. It's a big deal what facilities you build because you have a limited space, and you're clearing out alien debris from the Avenger from the bottom floors.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's like cleaning your house so you can put furniture in it.
Yeah, exactly. So furniture that helps you research like mind control devices and
mind control furniture.
And you get supplies from that, so it's a huge deal. But you also have you start learning which facilities to build, and you start learning where to put your engineers so they buff certain facilities and help you build certain things faster. You get scientists, which are still really important, but it's not as dense as the older games were. It's still very much like Enemy Unknown, but it is the added mechanic of it's a mobile base, and you actually takes time to travel, obviously, from place to place. So if you're traveling far, you could land, and then there will be a mission waiting for you. That's happened to me all the time, especially on the higher difficulties, and when you're at on your last string, and I was in East Africa, and I had to fly to Western U.S. Like, God, there's gonna be something horrible waiting, and they had attacked some New York or something, Eastern U.S. I was like, oh, God damn it. So you have to really manage your time. Like, so much of this game is managing time now, and it is stressful, but that's part of what makes it fun, because you're kind of thinking on that layer too, not just resources and soldiers, but you're also managing how much time do I have left to make this decision. That's
awesome. There's a bunch of questions coming in via Twitch. I also reached out to folks on Twitter beforehand for some questions for you, Mike, the reviewer, but I actually want to ask Alexa this one because I think you might be able to speak to this. Brenda's asking, when do you think they're going to buckle and pay some Porthouse to put it on PlayStation 4 and iOS? Do you think this is a game, because it's only on PC at the moment, do you think in the realities of sort of game development nowadays that eventually they will bring this out on Xbox One, PlayStation 4, or maybe do the iOS thing, which was very successful for them, I believe.
I have a feeling, based on the way that the game controls and based on resources and how many other companies are going to paying a third party to port it all to a console, and so many games are now ported on everything these days. I feel like based on the performance of Enemy Unknown and Enemy Within, they would probably port it to mobile first before they port it to PS4 or Xbox.
Yeah, apparently it didn't sell very well. I didn't realize. I was listening to a couple of podcasts last week, and they were talking about how apparently, the iOS one did, like you rightly said, but apparently the console ones, the Xbox 360 version, did not sell particularly great.
And if the audience is not there, then I can definitely see them being okay, we're not going to bring it to these additional consoles. Yeah, there's people that probably won't play it. I don't have a gaming PC yet. That's a story for another time. So I've been playing here and playing on my boyfriend's PC. But
the joys of moving.
I know, right? It's so great. I have double the consoles now.
First thing I did, I had to build. Took a while, but yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think they would. I don't think they'll do it anytime soon, or if at all. But mobile, probably.
We'll have to find out. Mike, a question for you then, a bit more specific about the Iron Man stuff. Christian Marsham asking, is it bug free enough to do Iron Man off the bat? A bunch of people are saying there's some stability issues with it.
Yeah.
Did you come across those? And
yeah, that was one of my only complaints with it, aside from things that carried over from Enemy Unknown, where the enemy kind of ignores the rules of the game, and it does get frustrating. But I would recommend. I like the game a lot more in Iron Man, and I think even with the bugs I experienced were not actually hindering me. It was just more frustration. When they would sprint and I would go into Overwatch and fire at them, it would kind of freeze for a few seconds. It was as if the game was trying to figure out what to show first and when to show it. It was more that, and not as much things that were actually impeding my progress. There were a couple times when somehow my sightline didn't make sense. I was 100% sure I should have flanked something, and they give me the yellow critical indicator of their face. But it was still a 10% chance to hit, and that was my last move that turn, because it was one of those objective missions. But I would say, just if you prefer Iron Man historically, just go for it. Just play it, and you're gonna fail probably, and that's not me insulting you. That's just this game is hard, and that's part of the.
That's how you play this game, right?
Yeah, you learn a lot.
Is that you don't always finish it first time.
Oh, yeah. I think it took me on the default difficulty with Iron Man. I think it was the third campaign I finally got toward the end. But even then, it was And each one was like 12 to 18 hours too.
Yeah.
So you could take a while, but there's a whole overarching thing that kind of makes you speed up. There's this, it's called the Avatar Project. I won't spoil what it is because there is kind of more of a narrative in this game, but it's this red progress bar keeps ticking one box at a time. And if it fills up, you have, I think it's 20 days before you just lose. And you have to get to an advent facility, which it could be in like Chile, and you're up in Eastern, like you're in Asia.
Yeah.
And so you have to first establish an uplink in Western Europe and then go to Chile, which in that like that would probably take you like 15 days.
And this is
there.
like, it's like beating this bar back, right? It's like,
yeah,
it's like,
there are very few times in this game where you're going to feel comfortable at all. If you're not losing a soldier, you're losing contact with a region. They're kind of, you have an advent facility that you have to go destroy, yet you're 2 regions away.
and it's dynamic as well, right? This is, it's not like the levels are dynamic generated or randomly or whatever.
Yeah, they're procedural. In terms of the maps and the objectives, they're probably about 10 to 12 rotating objectives.
Okay.
Aside from the main story beats, you still have to build these certain facilities to progress in the campaign and do autopsies on these certain kinds of enemies in order to unlock this thing you have to do to capture an enemy. And but outside of that, there's certain missions where you have to destroy these alien relays. There's certain ones where you have to extract someone to this evac point before a certain time. There's a timer on a lot of these, which I know a lot of people didn't like, but I think I do like them from a design standpoint. They bring you out of your comfort zone, if such a thing exists to begin with in this game. And
last question I'm going to throw out there because it's been echoed a couple of times. Quimakwa in the Twitch chat. How are these small camera / map selection glitches in XCOM 2 compared to Enemy Unknown? Like that's something people are pretty familiar with, especially with like when you're going into the animations. And was that what you were talking about with the hitching?
Those were the main things. So they did provide reviewers with like a list of known bugs that would be fixed by launch, which is what, Thursday night, midnight.
Are they fixed by launch?
I don't know yet. Right. I'm gonna check it out Thursday night. But again, it wasn't enough. I mentioned them, but it wasn't enough to hinder the overall experience I had. But yeah, they are. A lot of times it'll go into Overwatch and it'll show like over the shoulder from your soldier. Even if you turn the action cam off, it'll still show the enemy like frozen there for about 10 to 15 seconds.
God, that's so long. Yeah. In video game time, that's forever.
No.
Especially in this game where you know you have a certain percentage to hit. So you're like, oh my God, is 45 going to screw me over? Is this, oh my God. So the whole time they're frozen and I'm just like.
It's like pause for ad break.
Yeah.
We'll see after these messages.
You just get nauseous and have a headache and then finally you miss. You're like, okay, that makes sense.
Overall, it sounds like a pretty great game though.
Yeah, contrary to like what I'm talking about in those kind of situations, it really is. It's awesome. You think on so many different levels, from the strategy layer to the tactical layer. You start getting attached to individual soldiers, especially because it's kind of devious. They let you really customize the soldiers.
Oh yeah.
But as you're doing, you're like, this person's gonna die.
It's that.
What's the point?
I love the customization in this game. It goes pretty deep. I made armor for all my people that has it's actually a heart pattern, and so the hearts were alternating like black and white.
Yeah,
it was really cool.
And you can put them in like a pool of players now, so even if your game ends, you don't have to like remake them or anything. It just kind of pulls them out randomly. Cool.
I gave you like Irish colors in your armor, and then
what was my nickname?
One campaign I forgot what you did, but they ended up giving you the nickname All Day. It was like Danny All Day O'Dwyer, and then you died, and you actually.
How did he go?
All day getting shot.
I think I showed you the capture footage we had. You fell down literally in this bed of roses.
Really?
I swear.
Wow.
This Viper, one of the new enemy types, wrapped you up, and I couldn't. Chris Waters missed the shot.
Wrapped me up in a bed of roses?
Yeah.
I sound like a fucking Guns N' Roses tattoo. It's like a snake and a rose.
It's just a really shitty like.
Was it the boob snake?
The Viper, yeah. The Vipers,
I just call it the boob snake.
They're thin men. They're thin men, but they don't need the disguise anymore. So they're just their true form. They're these Viper snakes, and they coil you up. And if no one else attacks them or hits them, then they'll just keep doing damage. And so you were just stuck inside it. And Chris Waters missed the crucial shot.
Chris,
if he's watching right now, it still hurts, Chris. But yeah, you died. But then I zoomed in and kind of rotated slowly.
Yeah.
Saw you were cradling your machine gun.
All day, baby.
All day.
Lying in those beds of roses. Jesus Christ. Mike Mahardy, thank you so much for coming in and telling us, asking questions about your review. Alex Ray Korea, thank you for coming in giving us your opinion on this game as well. Really appreciate it. Folks, let us know what you think. Are you excited about XCOM 2? It sounds like a lot of people who are interested in XCOM were interested months ago and they're just going to go out and buy it. But if you're somebody who perhaps wasn't thinking about getting it and the reviews have changed your mind, let us know as well in the comment box below.